Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Talks underway in the Cayman Islands to decide who will form the next government. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Friday, May 26th from the CMC News Center in Bridgetown. I'm Ricardo Roberts. Thank you for joining us. Good evening. Negotiations are taking place between independent and party candidates who won their seats in Cayman Islands' general elections on Wednesday to reach agreement on who will form the new government for the next 4 years. The maneuvering that's currently in play follows the independent candidates taking the lion's share of the votes. They won 9 of 19 seats in the Legislative Assembly, while the incumbent People's Progressive Movement, PPM, took 7, and the other 3 went to the Cayman Democratic Party, the CDP. And political analyst Dr. Livingstone Smith says time is of the essence in reaching a decision.
It's important that that be done urgently because the country should not be kept in a limbo for long.
Political analyst Dr. Livingstone Smith saying what many woke up thinking as the reality of the May 24th election set in. But even with independents taking the lion's share of seats,
it is not a death knell for political parties by any way, all right? But it does suggest, though, that the parties, particularly the CDP, will have to engage in some reinvention, some reorganization, some rethinking process. So I think the vote is urging parties to rethink how they do things and so on.
Negotiations are going on between parties and independents, and it takes leadership to go forward. He says there are several scenarios that could play off in the coming days to form the government, but looking at the numbers,
my estimation, it would either be the PPM who does that, and certainly the other one would be from the independent branches. If they can come up with some cohesive team and bring over some others, that would be the government there.
He says at the negotiation table there will have to be give and take, trading of portfolios and agreement on shared ideologies to move forward. It will also take statesmanship.
After the election, persons are going to, be gracious to each other as they should, and put the country's interest at heart, and we have to move on from there.
He says hammering out a coalition is not an easy task and would take effort on all sides, but he believes Cayman will have its new government, or at least an indication, by Friday or Monday.
And that report from Cayman 27's Reshma Raghunath. The Turks and Caicos Islands is appealing to CARICOM countries to maintain a united position on the issue of de-risking and the loss of correspondent banking relationships, or CBRs. Some large international banks have started terminating or severely limiting their CBRs with smaller local and regional banks to reduce exposure to risks associated with money laundering and financing of terrorism. TCI Premier Charlene Cartwright Robinson says there's an attempt to de-risk entire sectors in her country.
We are trying to, for example, assess our financial services sector. We are complying with the various standards that are there, and it seems as if the goalpost is moving every time. We comply with another standard, and everybody else is coming up with their own standard, if I can say it that way. But we find that it's very difficult in trying to grow this sector to have de-risking becoming such an issue. It is certainly a danger for us. But apart from that, our concern is also that we're looking at the gaming industry, a sector that is a threat now for being de-risked, being a de-risking issue, de-risking the entire sector. it is important as we look at the solution and those who are bringing this forward that the idea is to avoid dirty money, but to also move away from what may become the result. If you're choosing not to bank a particular sector, then you're encouraging them to move suitcases of money.
Over to Bermuda, where nationals there are dividing on the issue of same-sex marriage on the island. On Thursday, thousands of residents led by a group called Preserve Marriage held a demonstration in the capital to pressure government to appeal a recent ruling by the Supreme Court that legalizes same-sex marriage. But members of the Rainbow Alliance of Bermuda, which supports the court decision, also came out to state their case. Judge Charles Etta Simmons, in her May 6th ruling, said same-sex couples in Bermuda had the right to marry. The Michael Dunkley administration has said it will not challenge the ruling. But several speakers on the Preserve Marriage platform said the government has a duty to press for a review of the court's decision. Several Bermudans gave their reason for attending the rally.
I'm here because I believe in God's word. God's word says that a man should marry a woman and men shouldn't marry men. He's totally against that, so that's why I'm here.
I'm here today because I support marriage as a husband and wife, a marriage as according to God's word and God's standards, and I'm supporting that this has been in place since the beginning of time, and the morality today is going downward, and so I'm here to support Preserve Marriage.
Totally against it. I am not come to judge. I'm just come to support what God designed that was created to, in real life, which is man and a woman getting married. I don't believe in the same-sex marriage, and yes, that's my view.
I'm here because I believe in love. I believe that everyone has the right to love where you want to, and not because society or church said what you have to do. So this is why I'm here.
And we're here to support the initiative that's being put forth now by Preserve Marriage. We recognize that a marriage should remain between a man and a woman. It's nothing against anybody else. It's just a principle that we stand on for the strength of our island going forward.
The status of efforts to reduce the spread of HIV in the region came under the microscope on Friday morning. The UN Special Envoy on HIV to the Caribbean, Dr. Edward Green, says that after years of progress, infection rates are on the rise. He was addressing a ceremony in Barbados to mark the 10th anniversary of Regional Testing Day.
Of great concern for our region is the finding in the 2016 UNAIDS GAP report that after 10 years of decline in the prevalence rate, the Caribbean has witnessed a 9% overall increase in new infections. This is shamefully second to Eastern Europe and Central Asia. While the major increases have occurred in Cuba and Jamaica, the alarm is mainly due to the fact that progress in stopping the new infections has stalled among adults and increasing among older groups in some countries, of which Barbados is indicated as well.
Coming up, one government minister calls for developing states to have a greater voice in talks on disaster risk reduction. You're watching Caribbean Newsline. Stay with us.
Beautiful Barbados and 4D Entertainment welcome you to the Flow Soca on the Hill, Sunday, July 23rd, 2017, where the mega stars of Crop Over 2017 assemble with the Caribbean Fest, Patrice, Skinny Fabulous, Ricky T, Orlando Octave, and Ultimate Rejects to bring you the world's greatest soca party, the Flow Soca on the Hill. Let's gather the people.
Dancing and whining and fretting till the morning. If you like drinking, masquerading, live music always playing. If you like islands of blue seas where people always smiling. If you like street jams and bandstands where people will be jamming. Don't you miss this time, no. In this country, I'm a 43. Our festival, our legacy. Don't you miss this time, no. In this country, I'm a 43.
In a place where legends start, the beach is just the beginning. So live a little for the exhilaration and the color of every moment, where time is and life is a spirited event. Immerse yourself in the culture, the music, the people, the island. Love Antigua and Barbuda. Embrace an experience that leaves you breathless, from cricket to sailing week to carnival and more. Antigua and Barbuda, the beach is just the beginning.
Chatting CARICOM, a 4-part series on the status of the regional integration process. Your chance to get answers.
We as a small island, how do we factor into that bigger picture?
Why is the process taking so long?
While there is liberty to move among the islands, you still have some level of restriction.
Chatting CARICOM also gives you updates on recent CARICOM projects.
We're seeking more and more to engage all our partners in moving forward for the development of our region.
We have come a very long way since we started.
Join the Caribbean community and CariVision for Chatting CARICOM, a community for all. May 31st at 8 p.m.
There's a call this evening for greater visibility of small island developing states like the Caribbean in global talks on disaster risk reduction. It comes from Jamaica's Minister of Local Government and Community Development, Desmond McKenzie, at the 2017 Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in Cancun, Mexico. McKenzie highlighted the region's vulnerability to disasters in an interview with CMC News on Friday afternoon.
We had a discussion this morning on the effects on tourism, and I think that was a very useful discussion that explores all the possibilities and to see ways how we can advance the technology, how we can advance the work to make smaller states like ours much more proactive in terms of disaster risk and how we respond. I think these are ongoing. The discussions are ongoing. A lot of things that have been presented here outside of the Sendai and all the other frameworks that were discussed has possibilities, but those possibilities can only become a reality if collectively all of the countries, whether large countries, medium-sized countries, or small economies, accept that disaster, respect no economy.
UN Representative for Disaster Risk Reduction, Robert Glasser, agrees that countries would benefit if more states contribute to finding solutions. But he says he recognizes the limitations of small island developing states.
Different countries have different capacities to implement. You know, I know some small island developing states, it's just a couple of people, few people in the ministry that have the expertise. And so, and I know one of the challenges we heard is if they're spending all their time talking to donors and reporting, they can't do they can't do their jobs. But on the other hand, they need the funding. So it's a catch-22, I think, for some countries.
Glasser is confident that over time, more countries will see the value in participating in smaller platforms.
Because the risks are going up with climate change, we're seeing more and more of these events. It is becoming impossible for any country to avoid this issue. And in fact, the lion's share, the leaders I speak with and ministers, they are so fully committed to addressing disaster risk. Their challenge is knowing what's the best way to do it, how do I fund it, where do I get my financing to do this, but they really are focused on the impacts because it isn't just about an immediate disaster. They have knock-on effects to food insecurity and people movements and even conflict, as we've seen in many parts of the world.
Over in Jamaica now, last week's flooding has left one community still cut off as floodwaters have not yet receded. In fact, residents of Douglas Castle in St. Anne have to take a boat to get in and out of their community. TVJ's Shamala Mitchell took a tour of the community and has this report.
Trapped.
No one can cross it.
That is the situation in Douglas Castle, St. Anne. Parts of the community now look like a pond, and there's only one way in and out.
I am sitting on a boat that is about to take me over to the community of Douglas Castle here in St. Anne. This boat is the only mode of transportation for the more than 1,000 residents who have been marooned since the heavy rains over a week ago. The residents say last week the rains came suddenly. They say they had no time to prepare for the onslaught.
Rain just come like a turnover and jump on the water, so it just flood. It couldn't get to drain.
As a result, life has not been the same for adults or children for that matter.
The kids aren't going to school, actually. It's just 1 and 2 because there's just one boat. One boat cannot bring them over. There's too much of them.
Douglas Castle is a farming community in the north of the parish, near the border with Clarendon. In fact, over 800 of the more than 1,000 residents there are farmers. So, when the rains came, most of the residents lost their livelihood.
And my field flood out. I have about a acre and a half of tomato. Tire party can bear and me and go pick a first picking up it and then it will like burn up.
Me have lettuce and papcho. Everything gone now. Everything gone now water.
Which means they lost money too.
Maybe like 200,000 after all is added up, seed, fertilizer and stuff like that.
So now, here's what they're asking for.
That overhead bridge, I then cut our next road, the front road, a bypass that we can, like, vehicle can drive on it, that we don't have a problem when going to school or when going out.
I do not see it presently to facilitate this community with a bridge, because it's not even will be able to facilitate a makeshift bridge.
That's the councillor. He has a plan.
After the water has subsided, to ensure that these holes that are surrounding the area, we try to find some way where we can drench the area to have these waters soak.
But for now, the residents are just waiting and watching, as it will take a while before the water recedes.
And ahead in Newsline Sport, the TNT government says no decision yet on whether it can host the CPL finals. Stay with us. Sport is next.
Follow your heart to the 21st edition of the St. Kitts Music Festival from the 22nd to the 24th of June, featuring Shabba Ranks, Ultimate Rejects, The Boozman, Mobado, Jack Pure, DJ Private Riot, and back together again, Square One. Also performing Third Word, Voice, King Mighty Chalk Dust, Creedence Clearwater Revisited, Ed Robinson, Ricardo Drew, Teddyson John, Felicia Ross, Brianna D, Lyrical, and Goo Goo Dolls. For more information, log on to www.stkitsmusicfestival.net.
Welcome to my island. Welcome to my Caribbean island. Welcome to my island.
Maybe in my next life, I'll become a golfer.
The Sajiko Cahill School of Business and Management invites you to attend Navigating a Path to Growth, a risk and competitive intelligence conference at Hilton Barbados Resort on June 26th and 27th, 2017. Speakers include Global Strategy and Risk expert Dr. Andrea Schotter, Regional PwC Risk Assurance Leader Bruce Scott, Miss Lisa Padmore, Dr. Delisle Worrell, Mr. Ian D'Souza, Professor Patrick Hossain, Professor Julian Marcel, and many others. For more information, call 246-424-7731 or visit www.uwichsb.org. Secure your space today.
CPL tops our weekend sport. The Keith Rowley administration is still in the dark about whether Trinidad and Tobago will host the playoffs of the Caribbean Premier League. That's because nothing concerning the matches was tabled at Thursday's cabinet meeting. This has raised questions about whether the Ministry of Sports did in fact broker a deal to host the playoffs. Leron Brummel of C Sport tells us more.
Excitement is building now that there is a suggestion that the much-anticipated Caribbean Premier League playoffs will return to Trinidad and Tobago, with matches hosted at both the Queen's Park Oval as well as the newly christened Brian Lara Cricket Academy. In fact, indications are that talks have been wrapped up and the deal only needs Cabinet's approval. But fans were disappointed to learn that no discussions concerning a bid to host the finals of the CPL took place in Cabinet on Thursday. This was confirmed by Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister Stuart Young during the post-cabinet press briefing on Thursday.
No, that matter has not reached the cabinet level attention as yet. I did see reports suggesting that Ministry of Sport intends to put certain proposals before the cabinet, but I'm confirming now it has not reached the cabinet.
The 6-team tournament is set to bowl off on August 4th in St. Lucia, with first-round matches also set for Fort Lauderdale, Florida, TNT, Guyana, St. Kitts and Nevis, Jamaica and Barbados, before the 4-match playoffs, which includes the final, likely for here in TNT. But surprisingly, Minister of Finance Colm Imbert said the government was in the dark about the bid.
I can say that has not come to the attention of the Ministry of Finance. I think Minister of Young is saying it hasn't come to the attention of the government. I'm not familiar with that.
Sports Minister Darrell Smith was quoted as stating that the deal was done and the fee of US $1 million was agreed to be paid partly in local currency. But the mixed signal is hardly likely to affect ticket sales as fans are already gobbling up the limited stock in Florida, and pretty soon the same rush is expected for the 5 games set for TNT in August.
The CPL runs from August 4 to September 10. But at a press conference on Friday, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley also confirmed that Cabinet received no report on whether the Twin Island Republic has put forward a case to host the finals.
Don't have any information on the CPL except to say that what the CPL got from the government of Trinidad and Tobago before, when we were splurging, we were not able to provide that, I think, for the last 2 years, and they went elsewhere. But once we are able to come to an agreement, and what we have offered to the CPL is to make our contribution in local dollars for the local input of the competition. It wasn't accepted on one occasion. If it's accepted on this occasion, we'd be delighted to have them have it in Trinidad and Tobago, but on terms that are agreeable to all of us.
Staying with cricket developments, Emmanuel Stewart will have 5 new caps to lead when the West Indies under-19 squad embarks on a tour of Southern Africa in July. The West Indies Cricket Board on Friday announced that a 15-member squad that will take on South Africa in 5 youth one-day internationals and Zimbabwe in 3. The WICB said in a release that the tours were being undertaken as part of the team's build-up to the ICC Under-19s World Cup in New Zealand from January 12 to February 4 next year. Stewart and Vice-Captain Christian Kalacharan are the only 2 remaining members from the World Cup winning squad of last year. The new players are Trinidad and Tobago left-handed batsman and part-time off-spinner Keegan Simmons, whose nephew, former West Indies batsman and head coach Phil Simmons, and cousin of West Indies batsman Lendell Simmons. There's also Guyanese wicketkeeper batsman Joshua Passard, along with pacer Cephas Cooper of Trinidad and Tobago, Darren Ned of Grenada, and Barbadian Naeem Young. The remaining 8 players were part of the team that played in the Regional Super 50 tournament in January and February in Antigua, including Bhaskar Yadram. The slow bowling all-rounder from Guyana is the only player in the squad that has moved on to make his first-class debut, playing for reigning 3-time regional 4-day champions Guyana Jaguars against Leeward Islands Hurricanes last April. Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has sought to address the issue of overspending by the Ministry of Sport. Minister Darrell Smith has come under fire after media reports revealed that his ministry spent close to $10,000 for him and other officials to attend a Tobago House of Assembly Sport Awards function in the Sister Isle. Rowley, who ordered and received a report from Smith, says that while he has not read the entire document, he remains disappointed.
I'm very disappointed at what I saw coming out of the Ministry of Sport. I must say, I was disappointed. But I'm not overwhelmed by it because I am leading a young cabinet, and I have a responsibility to ensure that they are guided in the appropriate way. And I think I've been doing that, and maybe not enough guidance would have fallen in the Ministry of Sport, and I would take responsibility for that, but I'll rectify that.
Switching sports now, 100-meter sprint queen Elaine Thompson renews her rivalry with Daphne Skippers in an all-star clash in the women's 200 meters, which headlines the third stop of the IAAF Diamond League at the Prefontaine Classic on Friday and Saturday. More in this report.
5 Jamaicans led by Olympic champions Elaine Thompson and Omar McLeod will run in the third Diamond League meet of the season, the Prefontaine Classic in Eugene, Oregon on Saturday. Thompson, who is unbeaten this season, will again come face-to-face with world champion Daphne Skippers of Holland in a big women's 200-meter field that also includes Alison Felix, Tori Bowie, and Olympic 400-meter champion Shawnee Miller-Uibo. McLeod will go in his pet event, the 110-meter hurdles, to battle the likes of world record holder Aries Merritt, Ronald Levy, and the most immediate ex-world champion David Oliver. Veronica Campbell-Brown and Simone Facey are the Jamaicans down for the women's 100 meters with Michelle Lee Ayi and Tiana Bartoletta. While in the women's 400-meter hurdles, Genevieve Russell will take on the Olympic champion Delilah Muhammad and Ashley Spencer.
And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Follow your heart to the 21st edition of the St. Kitts Music Festival from the 22nd to the 24th of June, featuring Shabba Ranks, Ultimate Rejects, The Boozman, Mobado, Jack Pure, DJ Private Riot, and back together again, Square One. Also performing Third Word, Voice, King Mighty Chalk Dust, Creedence Clearwater Revisited, Ed Robinson, Ricardo Drew, Teddyson John, Felicia Ross, Brianna D, Lyrical, and Goo Goo Dolls. For more information, log on to www.stkitsmusicfestival.net.
Dancing and whining and fretting till the morning. Drinking, masquerading, live music always playing. Islands of blue seas where people always smiling. Street jams and bandstands where people will be jamming. Don't you miss this time, no. Our festival, our legacy. Don't you miss this time, no.
Again, the major developments of this day: successful candidates in Cayman Islands, elections in negotiations to decide who will form the next government. And in sport, the TNT government says no decision yet on whether it can host matches in this year's Caribbean Premier League. That's Caribbean Newsline for news and sports round the clock. Log on to CarnerNews.com. We'll be back here again on Monday. But from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching. Have yourselves a good night.